Hello everyone, Valiath here. Today I'll be showing you my plus 24 Thorn Tides that I did with a guildmate Reservis and some random pugs. This dungeon is deadly, and if your group is not prepared with interrupt, stuns and other forms of enemy control, it will become much harder. This first pull has become standard these days, and quite frankly, considering it's a tyrannical week and we had a stacked group, the tank probably could have pulled the 2 oracles and the sentinel from the back as well. Including those 3 into the pull is a bit more iffy during fortified weeks. The reason for that is the sentinel's shellbreak cast. This cast makes the tank take 30% more physical damage, which means he'll take a lot more damage from the enemy's melee swings. Make sure to interrupt the healing wave cast from the oracles. The invaders can hit the tank for quite a decent amount, but most tanks will be able to shrug it off with active mitigation or a basic defensive. But the snapdragons will fixate players and put a stacking debuff on them. This can hurt, so pay attention to the fixated player. But the most important thing for us as healers to pay attention to is the crushing depths cast by the sentinel. This is the large healing absorb that he'll place on a random player. When that goes out, we need to plow as much healing as we can into that player, otherwise they will die. If you're a healer that struggles with single target healing, it's not a bad idea to ask the other party members for some help, especially if they're a paladin, because they can throw out a word of glory that will top off anyone very quickly. And if all else fails, they also have lay on hands. In the next room you'll encounter a mini-boss, the Nazjar Ravager. There's nothing really special about this one other than people will take damage from the barrage and people need to move out of the big green circle she puts on the ground. Up the elevator we go, and we encounter yet another gauntlet type room, where you guessed it, we're gonna pull practically every single enemy in here. We are leaving the 2 sentinels in the back for the exact same reason as I mentioned before. Double shell breaks on the tank is gonna hurt a lot. They're more the same enemies up here that we encountered downstairs, but in addition to them we have the Tempest Witch and Murloc Drudges. The witches will cast a basic lightning bolt on players, nothing too painful, but make sure that you stay a bit spread out to avoid cleaving people with the lightning surge they cast on a player. Just make sure you dispel it as soon as you can, especially if it's on a melee player. These 2 sentinels can be tricky for us as healers, as there will be 2 large healing absorbs back to back. Make 100% sure that you have all your hard hitting single target spells ready for it, and also make sure that whatever ramp or prep you need to have done is ready before they go out. The first heal absorb comes out roughly 15 seconds after they're engaged, and the second one at roughly 22 seconds. That means that you have about 7 seconds to finish the first one off before you have to swap targets to clear out the second healing absorb. This next large room is a combination of every enemy we've encountered so far, and success in here is 100% dependent upon your tank's ability to pull the groups properly. The tank we had did an excellent job in here, and he was able to isolate the snapdragons by themselves, which is arguably the most dangerous pack in here, considering the fixate and the stacking debuff they put on people. With some well placed AoE stuns, Ring of Peace, and ridiculous damage, it was no problem for this group. Time for boss number 1, Lady Nazjar. She has one phase with 2 intermissions at 60% and one at 30%. The single most important thing for us as healers is being prepared for the Focus Tempest channeled spell. This hurts like hell, especially if people are stacked too close to one another. Think of this spell as a very powerful chain lightning that jumps to nearby players and does more damage the closer they are to one another. During its channel, it will tick 3 times, so make sure you have an answer to each of the ticks. Shock Blast is the next ability to pay attention to. The targeted player should move away from the group to the edge of the room, so the ability can go off and shoot out its lightning balls. The targeted player will take substantial amount of damage, so use any form of damage reduction on them and be prepared to heal them quickly, especially if they are of the squishier variety. Once she hits 60%, the first intermission starts. 2 Frost Witches and an Honor Guard will spawn, as well as a ton of these geysers around the room. This phase is all about making sure you keep moving, and not standing in bad stuff on the ground, and continue to spot heal your party. If you are a healer that can dispel or purge icy veins from the witches, please do so. It gives them 30% more haste, and can make them quite dangerous. Also, make 100% sure you never stay in front of the guard when he does his Trident Flurry frontal. This will one-shot you. Immediately after she's dead, we walk into the second boss room, where we encounter Commander Ulthok. This is yet again another boss that depends a lot on group movement and placement. Make sure you do not place the bubbling fishes all over the place. In general, it's a good idea to place them right behind the boss or to the side of him. But the biggest thing for us to pay attention to is the festering shockwave knockback and damage over time effect. Make sure you have your group prepped for this damage, as it can get quite nasty if you are not prepared. I like to make sure I stand up against a wall or a pillar when it goes out to avoid being flung across the entire damn room when it goes off. Outside of this, there really isn't much damage going out to the party. Make sure you pay attention to where you're standing, preferably following the tank in front of the boss like you see us doing, and try to help out with the oozes when they spawn. Once you've made your way downstairs again, we encounter a Faceless Watcher, Faceless Seer, as well as 4 minions of Gurshaw. The Seer and Watcher are not very dangerous so long as you don't stand in the smash after you get dragged in, and you move out of the way for the Mind Flay. The real danger here are the minions. They continuously push out unavoidable AoE damage to your party. On fortified weeks, these guys will wreck your group, so pay extra attention. We encounter more of the same until we get to the boss, Mindbender Gurshaw. In my opinion, as a healer, this is by far the most difficult boss in this entire place. The danger isn't that he's particularly difficult or has complicated mechanics. It is 100% due to the flame shock he puts on people. At first, there's only one person that gets it, which is easy enough to dispel. But as you see, one tick takes about half of someone's health, and if they are a squishier variety, even more. If players do not use their personal defenses when they have this debuff, they're straight up trolling you as a healer. The difficulty really ramps up when there's two of them out at the same time on players, and you can only dispel one person. One thing that I've learned that works for me is to let the first person with the debuff keep it, and just focus heal that person. As soon as the second one goes out, dispel that one. If you can manage this debuff and make sure your tank doesn't die when they get smacked by the boss when the totem's out, the rest of the fight is actually quite simple. Just stay away from the swirls on the ground, spot heal everyone else, and make sure you hide behind the pillar for phase 2.
Four, three, two, one. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now to yet another gauntlet, and this is by far the most dangerous one in here. Success here depends a lot on your tank's ability to time when he wants to pull the sentries, the paths back and forth. We want to make sure that the hunters and aqua mages here in the beginning are stunned, interrupted, or otherwise prevented from casting as much as possible. Because if they're allowed to get a cast off, you'll see later in the gauntlet, someone will get one shot. The biggest problem here from a healer standpoint are all these corruptions. When they die, they leave a stacking debuff on all players called Wave of Corruption. This makes players take 10% increased nature damage per stack. If your group has a lot of these stacks when the center does his swell ability, the entire group will be taking an insane amount of damage. We are at 5 stacks here and he's just punishing us with that cast. What makes it even worse is that these corruptions will continue to respawn until you finish the gauntlet, meaning you risk getting more and more of these stacks the longer you stay in place. The second sentry is the more dangerous one, as at this point we have a lot of these little corruptions around us. And if they all die at the same time, and the sentry starts casting his swell ability, it'll probably kill the group. And as I mentioned earlier, we allowed one of these Aqua Mages to get a cast off, and unfortunately it targeted me, and I got one shot. Goes to show how important it is to stun, interrupt, or otherwise prevent them from casting, or this will happen. And finally, we're at the last boss, Azumat. This boss has several things the group needs to pay attention to. If done correctly, it's actually not that difficult. The main thing everyone needs to pay attention to is Blotting Barrage. It puts a purple circle around you. You want to make sure you place it close to the other people that has the circle as well. Pay attention here though, do not stand on top of each other. It will probably kill you. Once they go off, they leave a black puddle of bat on the ground. They will continuously grow throughout the fight. However, throughout the fight, 2 players will be targeted by Cleansing Flux, or the big blue water looking beam. Your job when you have that is to stand in the black puddles, as it will remove them. Nothing else is more important at that point, as if you fail to do this, the entire room will eventually be covered in this stuff. It will become an absolute nightmare to heal and play around. It should be obvious, but if you don't have the blue water beam, do not stand in the black puddles on the ground. It does an insane amount of damage. If you're able to properly manage the Blotting Barrage and Cleansing Flux, the fight is actually quite easy. Make sure the adds die close together, as when they die, they'll put more of the black stuff on the ground. For us as healers, pay attention to the people targeted with Blotting Barrage. It does a moderate amount of damage on impact, so make sure they're topped off before it goes off. Also make sure the group is topped off before you cast Putrid Roar. This is an AoE damage ability that can hit quite hard, so pay attention to when it's about to be cast. That is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, please consider hitting the like button, leaving a comment below, but more importantly, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.